Friends, do you know what is Vedic Soma? Do you know that there is an intense debate in the world on the identity of the plant? Some Western writers link Vedic Soma with North American magic mushrooms or Central Asian ephedra. Some Indian scholars link this with Somlata, while other Indian scholars link Vedic Soma with Bhang. Is this another attempt by Western culture to usurp Indian culture? Let's discuss this in detail. Firstly, let's discuss what is Vedic Soma. Soma is described in the Rig Veda, the oldest of the Vedic texts, as a sacred ritual drink and personified as a god. It was pressed from a plant called soma and filtered, mixed with milk or water, and consumed during Vedic rituals. Soma was said to 1. Grant divine inspiration, 2. Give energy, clarity, courage and poetic vision, 3. Increase the size of belly or hunger, 4. Be the drink of the gods, also consumed by Indra before slaying demons. The effect of soma as described in the Rig Veda are akin to the effects of psychedelics. The usefulness of psychedelics in treating various mental and medical issues are well known in the 21st century. Praise of soma in Rig Veda demonstrate that Vedic civilization was well aware of medicinal and spiritual uses of psychedelic. While no Indian text written before 1800 AD, including Vedas, Upanishads, Mahabharata, or Chark Samhita or Sushrata Samhita, talk about soma being lost, certain texts such as the Brahmanas and Ayurvedic works mention Somalata as a substitute for soma. It appears that Brahmanas and Ayurvedic works mention Somalata as a substitute for soma because they wanted to mention a substitute which does not have a psychedelic properties. It is possible that a non-psychedelic substitute was mentioned because many people would not have been comfortable with psychedelic substances. Even in 21st century, we will find many who will oppose psychedelics without getting into the details of its benefits. So, there is no surprise if some people were not comfortable with psychedelic in Vedic and post-Vedic era, and therefore there was a need to find a non-psychedelic substitute. Now, let's get in detail about the possible candidates for soma. Scholars and ethnobotanists have debated this for over a century. The main contenders are 1. Amanita muscaria or magic mushroom. This is proposed by R. Gordon Wasson, 1968. This theory is very popular amongst Joe Rogan, his guests, and various self-claimed Western experts on Vedic Soma. While magic mushrooms have hallucinogenic and visionary qualities, preparation methods in the Rig Veda don't fully match. Further, there is no tradition or history of using mushrooms in India for religious or spiritual purposes. Hence, it appears that magic mushroom may not be a strong candidate for Vedic Soma. We are not saying that magic mushrooms are bad or they don't have psychedelic properties. Instead, what we are saying is that magic mushrooms may be a soma for Western or South American cultures, but unlikely to be Vedic Soma for Indian culture. Here we are using the term soma in its wider sense to mean a plant, herb, fungi, or cultural practice, which is useful in providing spiritual bliss, or ananda, to its users. Magic mushroom have long history of usage in Western and American culture. However, the Hindi term of mushroom is kukarmuta, dog's pee, which makes it clear that mushroom is unlikely to have any religious or spiritual significance in Indian culture. 2. Ephedra is another candidate for Vedic Soma. It has been proposed by Harry Falk and David Flattery. Ephedra is a stimulant with alkaloids that could cause wakefulness and excitement and fits the description of an energizing drink. The main reason for linking soma with ephedra is the usage of ephedra in Zoroastrianism or Parsi religion. In Parsi religion, there's a sacred plant drink called hauma, which is textually and ritually almost identical to Vedic Soma. In living Zoroastrian communities, Yazd, Kerman, Afghanistan, ephedra twigs are still used as haoma in rituals today. According to the scholars, this direct continuity makes ephedra a strong candidate. The problem with treating ephedra as the candidate for soma is that the Rig Veda often describes soma as producing exalted vision, divine inspiration, poetic ecstasy. Ephedra is energizing but not visionary in a psychedelic sense. This makes it hard to fully match the mystical, otherworldly aspects of soma. Further, in India, soma ritual use disappeared, while in Iran, haoma, ephedra, survived. This suggests maybe soma in India was not ephedra, and soma may have been something else like bhang. So, ephedra may be soma or hauma in Parsi culture. It is not a Vedic soma for Indian culture. A similar candidate for soma is Somlata plant. Somlata is a plant identified in later Indian traditions, particularly in post-Vedic texts and modern ethnobotany. as Sarcostemma acidum. This leafless succulent climber grows in arid regions of India, such as Rajasthan and Gujarat. In traditional practices, it is sometimes used in rituals as a substitute for the Vedic soma, with its stems crushed to produce a juice. However, Somalata is not psychoactive, which contrasts sharply with the Rigveda's descriptions of soma's intoxicating and visionary effects. Considering this, most scholars agree that Somalata is not the original soma of the Rigveda, but rather a later substitute adopted in Vedic rituals. It is possible that a non-psychedelic substitute was mentioned because all people are not comfortable with psychedelic substances. Even in 21st century, we will find many who will oppose psychedelics without getting into the details of its benefits. Having said that, it is clear that Somalata was a non-psychedelic substitute for Vedic soma. As Somalata was a substitute for Vedic soma and does not have psychedelic properties associated with Vedic soma, serious researchers on the subject tend to agree that Vedic soma and Somalata are different. 3. Now we will talk about third candidate for Vedic soma, and in our view most important candidate for soma. Several scholars have theorized that soma was bhang. They have relied on textual, linguistic and cultural parallels. One early proponent was B.L. Mukherjee, who in 1921-1922 suggested identification of bhang as soma. Subsequently, in 1939, Indian botanist Jogesh Chandra Ray argued in his work The Soma Plant that soma was bhang. He cited similarities in preparation methods. Both involve extracting and mixing plant material with dairy, and both have a comparable psychoactive effects described in the Rig Veda, such as stimulation and visionary states. More recently, Chris Bennett's 2010 book Cannabis and the Soma Solution expands on this, proposing that the combined sacramental use of soma, Vedic and hyoma, its Avestan counterpart in Zoroastrianism, originated from a common Indo-Iranian ancestry, with bhang as the core plant. Bennett and others emphasize that this theory is particularly supported by Indian scholars, contrasting with Western proposals like psychedelic mushrooms. At Soma Sutra, we tend to agree with the view that bhang is the most likely candidate for Vedic soma. Similar to the writers like Jagdish Chandra Ray and others, we believe that soma was bhang. This is because of the following 4 reasons. 1. Soma and bhang have similar preparation methods. Both involve extracting and mixing plant material with dairy. 2. Both have comparable psychedelic effects described in the Rig Veda, such as stimulation and visionary states. 3. Bhang has deep roots in Indian culture and is explicitly used in later Hindu rituals for Lord Shiva. Texts like the Atharva Veda and Puranas explicitly praise bhang as sacred. 4. The linguistic linkage between soma and bhang cannot be ignored. Bhang is referred as somaradza in Tibetan. This shows a clear link between soma and bhang. Further, Lord Shiva is referred as Somnath. While mainstream stories link Somnath with Shiva being god of moon, who is also referred as Soma, it is possible to link Som of Somnath with Vedic soma, the plant. Viewed from this perspective, the link between soma and bhang would become much clearer, as Lord Shiva is directly connected with bhang in Indian scriptures. Friends, do you know that despite many Indian authors favoring bhang as the candidate for Vedic soma, the mainstream academic views support ephedra and magic mushroom as the stronger candidate for soma? In Soma Sutra's view, bhang is the most likely candidate for soma. As discussed earlier, ephedra does not have psychedelic properties. Hence, it is unlikely to be a serious candidate for soma. As far as magic mushrooms are concerned, while they have psychedelic properties, their method of preparation is vastly different from that of soma. Hence, magic mushrooms are unlikely to be a serious candidate for Vedic soma. Similarly, Somlata is a non-psychedelic substitute for soma and should not be confused with Vedic soma, which is clearly a psychedelic. One interesting aspect is that most Western authors and commentators seem to have used smokable forms of cannabis, that is ganja, charas and hash, and have come to conclusion that cannabis does not have psychedelic properties or very mild psychedelic properties. We at Soma Sutra strongly believe that they might have come to different conclusion had they used edible cannabis or bhang. Nowadays, throughout the world, psychedelic properties of edible cannabis is well known. If anyone has doubt about psychedelic properties of bhang, we would urge them to take a heroic or heavy dose of bhang and feel the psychedelic properties of bhang. A famous American comedian, Duncan Trussell, would testify to this. There is a video by Duncan Trussell on YouTube which talks about the psychedelic effects of bhang when he tried in India. So friends, what is your view on the likely candidates for Vedic Soma? Do you believe that Westerners are trying to usurp Vedic Soma, or do you think bhang is the most likely candidate for Soma? Please have your comments. Thank you for your time and attention to the matter. Follow Sama Sutra for such insights. Please like, share and subscribe. Thanks.